CNN legal analyst Shanlon Wu joining me right now. Shan, good to see you. So the format of the U.S. Senate trial would largely depend on what charges the House brings. So what do you take away from Schumer's comments?
I think that it indicates McConnell and the Republicans have some very large strategy questions to decide. For example, do they want to push for calling certain witnesses? They want to insist that Biden testify, or Pelosi or Schiff. Those are big strategic decisions because they have to pick what kind of fights they're going to have. So probably McConnell's trying to straighten that out rather than simply waiting for what appears now to be a formality of the decision to actually hand down articles of impeachment.
And it's about relevance too, right? I mean, who would be on the witness list? I mean, you heard Jerry Nadler say that earlier today, where he talked about certain witnesses not being called simply because they didn't seem relevant.
Right, that's exactly right. And the question of what evidence are they going to present, of course, depends on which articles that they're going to hand down. It certainly sounds like abuse of power is going to be one of the articles, possibly obstruction of Congress and even obstruction of justice, which opens up the interesting question of the Mueller issue. But certainly that's part of the strategy that the Republicans have to think about, because from a political point of view, if you're going to try and call Hunter Biden, that has pros and cons politically.
Okay. All right. So Judiciary Chair Nadler did seem to make it almost certain that abuse of power is among the articles. How do you envision this committee presenting other articles, high crimes and misdemeanors?
Well, it's interesting, Fred, because the report that we just saw from that committee goes to great pains to give the constitutional definitions of these impeachable offenses. And actually, the abuse of power becomes a subset of the high crimes and misdemeanors. They identified 3 areas that are overlapping that way. They look at corruption, they look at betrayal of the U.S. interests, and they also look at whether the president has put his own interests above that of the democracy. So we're going to see the abuse of power being presented in a pattern of conduct, and we've heard a number of Democrats talk about that. So I think you will see, looking at the 2016 election where the president called for foreign interference, as well as his more recent calls for it, as well as Ukraine, I think that's all going to be presented as part of a pattern of misconduct.
And then really quick, how do you see the impeachments of President Clinton or Nixon, being used as real framework, blueprints for this impeachment?
Yeah, that report that was just released references both Nixon and Clinton as precedent, and they're trying to build on those reports. It's going to be an important historical document as well that they've come out with this report. Primarily, they're using it to, ahead of time, knock down Republican defenses. So Nixon also tried to claim, famously, if the president does it, it's not illegal, and they certainly knocked that down, just as Trump has said that he can do things he wants to do because he's president. They also, so that's the executive power aspect.
Yeah.
They also attack the argument that it must be a crime in order to be impeachable. And they say that that's not true at all. It does not have to be a crime, and you don't have to make those kinds of rigorous criminal elements in this case.
All right, another big week on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much, Shan Wu. Appreciate it from Washington.
Good to see you, Fred.